Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about focus groups.
Oh, yeah.
And as always, we got some really interesting excerpts from research methodology textbooks all about this fascinating method.
Yeah, this will be cool.
So, focus groups. Let's unpack this.
Okay.
They bring together a small group of people, usually like 5 to 13, who all have something in common that's related to the research topic.
Okay.
And they come together for a guided discussion so that as a researcher, you can gather what's called qualitative data about their experiences and their ideas.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And their understanding. Now, here's a fascinating historical tidbit.
Okay.
The term focused interview was coined way back in the 1940s
Wow.
by sociologist Robert Merton.
Okay.
And initially, this was a term for individual interviews, but it's evolved over time into this focus group approach
Interesting.
that we use today.
And that evolution really just speaks volumes about how research methods just adapt and change over time.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me how societal needs and even technological advancements can shape the tools that we use to understand the world around us.
I totally agree. So why would we choose focus groups in the first place? Well, our sources outline 6 key uses.
Okay, let's hear them.
So first up is exploratory research.
Okay.
So let's say you're researching a brand new topic. Focus groups can be a great starting point. Just understand what people find important and how they even talk about the topic.
Yeah, like a treasure hunt for insights.
Exactly.
One study I was reading used focus groups to understand how young people from different socioeconomic backgrounds experience physical activity.
Interesting.
And they discovered themes like the role of fun and competence and even adult involvement.
Oh, wow.
Which helped researchers design more effective interventions later on.
That's a really cool example.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next use that we have here is hypothesis generation.
Okay.
Or theory development.
Gotcha.
So focus groups can help you go beyond just exploring a topic, but start formulating explanations for why people think or act a certain way.
Yeah, for example, in aging research, focus groups have revealed that participants often connect good health with overall well-being.
That's interesting.
Which suggests that older individuals who see themselves as healthy tend to experience greater well-being.
Okay.
A pretty fascinating hypothesis that can then be tested with further research.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3 is particularly interesting to me. It's observing group interactions.
Oh, okay.
It's not just about what people say, but how they interact with each other, who takes the lead, how they disagree, and how they build meaning together as a group.
This can be really insightful, actually, especially when researching complex social issues.
Yeah.
There was a study exploring young people and sexuality, and it used focus groups to observe how teenagers discuss sensitive topics with their peers. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that revealed dynamics like peer pressure, misinformation, and anxieties around personal experiences.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so the fourth use here brings us to the realm of consultation and evaluation.
Okay.
So you can use focus groups to get feedback on existing programs or policies.
Like imagine you're evaluating a community health program. Focus groups with participants could provide valuable insights into what's working, what needs improvement, and even spark new ideas.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, there was a study that was evaluating a program supporting young carers, and they used this approach and uncovered themes like isolation and stigma and challenges balancing caregiving with their personal lives.
Oh, wow.
Which led to changes that better supported those young people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, the fifth use that we have here is checking back. And it acts as a sort of validation step for researchers. Imagine you've done some interviews or surveys, and some of the findings are puzzling. You're not really sure what to make of them.
Focus groups can actually help bring those findings back to participants.
Oh, okay.
And get their perspective on your interpretations.
This is especially valuable in ethnographic research where researchers immerse themselves in a community.
Yeah.
After gathering data, they might use focus groups to discuss their initial findings with community members to ensure that their interpretations are accurate and relevant to the lived experiences of the people involved.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And lastly, focus groups can be empowering and give participants a voice in the research process. This is especially true when we're working with marginalized communities.
Right, like a community development project focus groups can allow residents to discuss their needs and aspirations for their neighborhood,
Yeah.
which gives them direct input into shaping the project and ensuring that it truly reflects their priorities.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's moving beyond extracting information and towards collaboration and participation.
I love that.
Yeah,
So we've covered the why.
the why.
Now let's dive into the practical side.
Side.
How of focus groups.
Correct.
So how do you make sure that these groups are productive and they stay on track? What are the nuts and bolts of getting a focus group up and running?
Well, first you need to think about the logistics.
Okay.
Where will you hold this focus group? What time works best for the participants? And very importantly, how are you going to recruit these people?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Our sources mention tapping into existing groups using snowball sampling, which is where participants recommend other people,
Right?
or even advertising online.
Yeah, and don't forget about incentives.
Oh, yeah.
Even small things like refreshments or a gift card can go a long way in showing people that you value their time
For sure.
and encouraging them to participate.
Absolutely. And when it comes to facilitating the discussion, just think of yourself as a conductor,
Okay.
guiding the conversation, making sure that everyone feels heard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a clear topic guide can act as your roadmap,
Yeah.
keeping the discussion focused while still allowing for that flexibility and natural exploration.
Right? I like that. A roadmap.
Welcome back to our deep dive on focus groups.
Yes, we left off talking about the logistics of getting a focus group up and running.
Right, all those nuts and bolts.
But now let's get into the heart of it.
Okay.
The actual focus group discussion.
Mm-hmm.
How do we ensure that this generates the rich, insightful conversations that we're looking for?
Well, it all starts with the questions.
Okay.
You know, crafting effective focus group questions is a skill in itself.
Yeah.
It's not just about asking anything that comes to mind.
Right.
You need to really carefully consider your research goals
Okay.
and design questions that will draw out meaningful insights.
I imagine it's kind of like being a journalist.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to ask the right questions in order to get the story.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And just like a good journalist, you want to use open-ended questions that encourage participants to elaborate, share stories, express themselves in their own words.
Right.
Avoid those closed-ended questions that only elicit a yes or no.
Okay, so instead of asking, do you use social media?
Yeah,
You might ask, how has social media impacted your daily life?
exactly. That opens up the conversation for more nuanced personal responses.
Yeah?
And remember, focus groups are all about interaction.
Right.
So think about questions that encourage participants to build on each other's ideas, share different perspectives, maybe even engage in some respectful debate.
It's about creating that spark,
Yeah.
that dynamic exchange where people can challenge each other's assumptions and really dig into the topic.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of prompts or probes to kind of dig deeper.
Okay.
If someone mentions something interesting, follow up with, could you tell me more about that?
Yeah.
Or what leads you to that conclusion?
Right.
These probes can uncover those hidden gems of insight.
I like that.
Yeah.
So what about the order of the questions? Does that sequence matter?
It absolutely does.
Okay.
Our sources emphasize the importance of a logical flow.
Okay.
You want to start with some general icebreaker questions to kind of warm up the group and build that rapport.
Okay.
And then gradually transition to the more specific questions
Yep.
that align with your research objectives.
So it's like building a story.
Yeah.
You start with a broad introduction,
Yeah.
and then you narrow the focus and draw the reader in.
Exactly. Think about creating a narrative arc that makes sense to the participants and keeps them engaged throughout the discussion.
Okay.
Now let's move on to another crucial aspect of these focus groups.
Okay.
Those sometimes unpredictable group dynamics.
Oh, yeah. Those group dynamics.
Yeah.
Groups can be fascinating,
Yeah.
but they can also be very challenging to manage.
True.
How do you navigate those tricky interpersonal dynamics that can sometimes derail a discussion?
Well, it's a delicate dance, you know?
Okay.
As a facilitator, you need to be attuned to the energy of the group.
Okay.
Those subtle shifts in power, the unspoken tensions,
Yeah.
the moments when someone's about to go off on a tangent.
Right. It's like you're a conductor keeping the orchestra in harmony.
Precisely. And sometimes you need to intervene.
Oh.
If one person is dominating, you gently redirect the focus to others.
Okay.
If a disagreement gets heated, acknowledge both sides, reframe the conversation. And for those quieter participants, try direct engagement.
Right.
Address them by name. Ask a question that's tailored to their expertise.
It's all about creating a space where everyone feels valued and heard,
Exactly.
regardless of their personality or their communication style.
Exactly. And sometimes silence can be just as powerful as words.
Oh, that's interesting.
Don't be afraid to let a question hang in the air for a moment.
Yeah.
Those moments of reflection often lead to the most thoughtful responses.
I can see that.
Now let's shift gears and discuss another potential challenge.
Okay.
Sensitive topics.
Oh, yeah.
This is where things can get really delicate.
Right.
How do you balance the need to gather data with the responsibility of ensuring participants feel safe and respected when discussing these personal or potentially triggering topics?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Well, clear ground rules are essential.
Okay.
You emphasize respect, confidentiality, and the importance of listening without judgment.
Okay.
Create an environment where participants feel comfortable sharing without feeling pressured.
Yeah.
And be prepared for strong emotions.
Okay.
If someone becomes visibly upset, acknowledge their feelings, offer support.
Yeah.
You might need to pause the discussion, offer a break,
Right.
or even have resources available for counseling or support services.
It sounds like navigating these sensitive topics requires a lot of empathy and careful consideration.
Absolutely. But the insights that you gain from these discussions can be incredibly valuable.
Right.
They can really deepen our understanding of complex social issues.
Yeah.
Approaching these conversations with respect and a commitment to ethical research practices is key.
For sure, for sure.
So we've covered a lot about the art of facilitating a focus group.
Yeah, we have.
From crafting the right questions to navigating those dynamic group interactions.
So now I'm curious.
Yeah.
Where do these discussions actually take place?
Yeah, where do they happen?
Do they always happen in like a formal setting?
Right.
Or are there other options? So where do these discussions take place?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Is it always a formal setting or are there other options?
Well, the classic image might be a conference room
Right.
with a big table, a whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not wrong. Face-to-face focus groups are still very common.
Yeah.
And there's something about that in-person energy, right?
Yeah.
Being able to read body language and pick up on those nonverbal cues.
You can get a feel for the group dynamics.
Yeah, exactly.
And the nuances of how people are responding.
Precisely. But one of the great things about focus groups is their adaptability.
Okay.
They can really happen anywhere that makes participants feel comfortable.
Okay.
And that fosters open discussion.
So it could be a community center, a school library,
Yeah,
even somebody's living room.
exactly. It's all about creating an environment that aligns with your research topic and the demographics of the participants.
Makes sense.
Now, our sources highlight a particularly interesting trend that's been happening in recent years.
Okay.
It's the rise of online platforms
Oh, yeah.
for focus groups.
This is exciting.
Yeah,
It opens up a whole new world of possibilities,
it really does.
especially for reaching diverse populations.
Yeah.
Or people who maybe can't participate in person.
Yeah, think about it. You could have people from different cities, countries, even continents all joining a focus group from their own homes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier to gather those perspectives from a wider range of individuals.
And I bet online platforms offer some unique advantages.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, some people might feel more comfortable sharing their thoughts and opinions online,
Oh, yeah.
especially if it's a sensitive topic,
Yeah.
or if they're just naturally a little bit more introverted.
That's a great point. It provides a sense of anonymity and can reduce those inhibitions that sometimes arise in face-to-face interactions. Plus, online focus groups can be a really fantastic way to engage younger generations who are already so comfortable interacting in digital spaces.
Right. It feels natural.
Yeah.
So I imagine there are also some challenges to consider.
Oh, for sure.
What are some of the downsides potentially?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, one obvious challenge is that lack of nonverbal cues.
Right.
You can't read body language as easily online,
Yeah.
so you have to pay extra attention to the nuances of written communication.
So you have to listen very carefully to the words and the tone
Exactly.
and try to read between the lines a little bit.
Exactly. And of course, technical issues are always a possibility.
Right.
You need to make sure everyone has a stable internet connection and is
Yeah.
comfortable using whatever online platform you're using.
And I imagine it might be a little bit harder to build rapport
Yeah.
and that sense of group cohesion
It can be.
when everyone's interacting through a screen.
But a skilled facilitator can overcome these challenges by using engaging activities, icebreakers, and techniques specifically designed to create a sense of connection even in that virtual space.
I like that.
So whether you're gathering in a physical space or connecting online, the key takeaway is that focus groups are a versatile and powerful tool for gathering rich qualitative data.
They give us a window into the human experience.
Yes, they do.
They allow us to understand not just what people think, but why they think it.
It's the beauty of qualitative research. It's exploring that richness and complexity of human perspectives.
Right.
Gathering those stories and insights that quantitative data alone just can't capture.
It's about embracing those messy human elements and recognizing that understanding people's experiences and motivations is just as valuable as measuring their behaviors.
We're always learning and evolving as researchers. It's about asking questions, challenging our assumptions, and being open to new ways of understanding the world around us.
I love that.
Focus groups, whether online or in person, give us a powerful tool to do just that.
They invite us to step into the shoes of others,
to
hear their stories, and to broaden our perspectives.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Support our efforts. Like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future videos.